This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so one more time, everybody, I have a handout here that I'm gonna make sure that you guys get. I will share my screen so that people virtually can see it as well, because it's backwards here. I'm gonna be referring to our training book, pages 22 and 23. That's where this verbiage is coming from. And you will also need a copy of the section 125 packets, okay? The first thing that we're gonna do is we wanna make sure that we're saying the closing statement. This would be very beneficial to everybody in the room. So make sure that you're facing up here and taking notes on those handouts. We're starting with the how it works slide. Okay, so remember, whenever you're talking about the how it works at the very end of the presentation, you're asking those people, you're doing your closing statement. Okay, so this is how it works. We're going to meet with each of your employees on an individual basis. We're going to get them set up with those no cost benefits. We've got that $3,000 accidental death coverage, and we've got the health discount card for the whole family. We're going to ask them a few questions in order to see if they have any, any coverages that they might need, and then offer policies to fill any of those needs. Closing statement. All we ask from you is that if any of your employees want to protect themselves and their families, pay for it 100% themselves, that you allow them to do that through payroll deduction. That way you get the tax savings and they get the tax savings as well. I do have some time available to do that on Tuesday afternoon, or would Wednesday morning work better for you? That is the closing statement. It needs to roll out, just like we're not negotiating if we're going to do it, we're negotiating when we're going to do it. Okay. So we've got Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon. Which one works better for you? Thursday afternoon. We've negotiated. Okay, Thursday afternoon. Perfect. So the first thing I'm going to do in my section 125 packet is I'm going to say, okay, no problem. There's just a little bit of information I need to get you in our system for those no cost benefits. Okay, my first page is going to be my employee engagement process. I'm going to start with the middle section here, and I marked it with the section number 2. And I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see that here. My first page after the cover is going to be my employee engagement process. So I want it to be so that I can look at my first section. That's the middle section there. Okay, my enrollment dates. We decided on Thursday, and then we said in the afternoon. So let's say we talked about 1:30. Now, Joe, you're going to be here. Is that correct? You're going to be here during that enrollment period. Because you do not want to be doing an enrollment with your DM out. You want to make sure that that person's going to be there. If that person's going to be absent for any reason, then you're going to want to stop, change the date. Oh, you know what? I got a doctor's appointment that day. Okay, you know what? I'd actually really prefer to have you here. That way you can be present for the process in case any of your employees have any questions. Okay, so you're going to put it back on them that they need to be there. And then if they're not the only person that gets the deductions, then I would highly recommend putting that person's name down here. Now, Joe, are you the only one who's going to get those deductions, or does Sally, your bookkeeper, also need to get a copy? Or do you use QuickBooks? Well, QuickBooks is in-house. Let's say you use a payroll company. Do you use somebody for that payroll company? Who else should I make sure that they get a copy of those deductions? Let's write that in that spot there. And then for our enrollment, are we going to actually be doing that here in the break room where we're talking right now? Do you guys have a specific area? Because there are going to be some HIPAA sensitive questions that we have for some people. We want to make sure that we provide them with the privacy that they deserve for those questions. They can really answer me honestly. Okay, that's the first section. So you're negotiating the date. Okay, once you have the date, then you're going to put that down. Then the second part of the section, this is the top of the employee engagement process page. You're literally going to read this verbatim. Okay, so everybody's looking at this top sheet with me. The most important part of a successful benefit enrollment is 100% participation by all employees. This benefits you in 3 different ways. And we're going to have you initial on these as I go through them with you. Okay, Joe? So the first one is the tax savings. Obviously, the more employees that participate in the plan by purchasing pre-tax products, that lowers your gross payroll. Okay, that means you're going to pay less on the FICA and the FUTA. Okay, and all those things. It's going to be helpful to you. Second, as discussed, I'm going to make sure that I provide that accidental death coverage and the health savings discount card to every employee and their families. Okay, we're going to make sure that those employees know that these benefits are being made available because you made them available. That's on your behalf. Okay, and then number 3, our goal is to keep your plan in compliance with the IRS section 125. And that is kept in compliance by allowing all employees to have the opportunity to speak with me. Now, how are we going to make sure that all of your employees have a chance to speak with me? I'm going to get you a flyer. How can we make sure that everybody has a chance to look at that flyer? Are you going to be able to send that home in paychecks? Are you going to be sending out a group email? This is where we find out, you guys, how they're going to get that flyer out. It is vital to the success of your enrollment that your employees know you are coming. I don't know how many times that I put somebody else in charge of an enrollment that it doesn't get set up the right way. And then you go to the enrollment and it goes sideways. The employees don't know, the employer forgot. I didn't even know you were coming. I didn't even know what, I have to talk to my wife. This is how we let them know that they're going to have some options that are being made available, okay? They have to get that flyer out. This section, this number 2 on employee engagement process is super important, and you need to read it verbatim, okay? Now, if you know what you're saying, obviously you heard me, I added some things, right? But I basically said what it is right there. If you don't know it, you're reading it. And they're going to initial that. Okay, if you're okay with that, sir, I'm going to get you some tax savings. I'm going to get these no cost benefits out to your employees. You're going to get the flyer out to whomever. I need you to initial those 3 spots. Okay, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom. And then the bottom section, I'm going to make sure that I talk to them about the employee list. That's the next thing I'm going to talk to them about. My employee list. Now, Joe, in order for me to get those benefits set up, I need to know who actually works here. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get an employee list with first and last names and an approximate hire date. I don't need any kind of personal information, nothing like that. But in order for them to have those no cost benefits, they have to be in our system. This is actually going to help save you some time whenever I come, because it's already going to be set up. Okay, now I have an example of that. Are you the one that can print that off for me, or is Sally up front the one who's going to print that for me? Oh, it's going to be me. Oh, it's going to be Sally. Whatever the response is, perfect. Why don't we go ahead and get that started? Okay, I want to make sure I get you signed on there. Make sure your name's on it too. That way you get those no cost benefits. We're not walking out without our employee list. If they're like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to email you. Most people that have been here for a hot minute, you've had an experience where they don't actually get it to you, then you're chasing them for that. If there's any possible way to get it in the door when you're standing right there, you want to take it home with you, okay? So make it seem like you're going to make their life easier if you can get that employee list. Make sense? You want to get that employee list like, hey, this is going to be less time out of production because I already have them in the system. If I already know who's here, then I can keep them expedited coming in 10 minutes instead of 15. Okay, that's going to be less time for you. The second thing on that bottom of the section here is the employer verification call. Okay, you want to remind them that there's going to be an employer verification call. Now, some people on this sheet here with that employer verification call, people will say, oh, I'm gonna have my phone number there, or I want them to call my cell phone, or I want them to call from 12 to 3 or whatever. It cannot just be written right here. Okay, it needs to go on the information sheet. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. You need to be verifying this information on your payroll deduction billing information sheet. This needs to get approved with the DM. Do not just do this paper with your benefits fact sheet. It might not be correct. So we're on employee engagement process. Number 1, we negotiate the date. Number 2, we read through that important parts of the benefits enrollment. Number 3, we talk about employee lists. That should be the next page of your packet. Then we're going to verify that verification call. Here's where I do that. Anybody that can answer that verification call goes on the line employer, owner, decision maker. Now, Joe, are you the only one who can answer that verification call, or is there anybody else? Can Sally answer those questions for them? No, it only can be me. Okay, no problem. Do you want them to call the business line, or is there another direct line that I can get for you? Oh yeah, they can call my cell phone, but don't let them call before 1 o'clock. This is where I write that. Worksite department is not going to look at that other page. Okay, it needs to be on this sheet. This is what they're looking at whenever they do that verification call. Now, Joe, My worksite department is going to give you a call. They're just going to verify that I'm writing down the correct billing address, the correct billing frequency, that you want to initiate the Worksite Advantage program, okay, and offer those no-cost benefits to your employees. Are you the only one that can make that phone call, or can Sally up front answer those questions? No, it's only me, only me. Perfect, no problem. Now, do you want them to call the business line, or is there a direct phone number that I can write down for you? Oh, yeah, they could call my cell. They could call, that's fine. But I don't want them to call me before 1 o'clock. Perfect, no problem. Let me just make a note right here. And then what's that cell phone number for you? Okay, now, Joe, I wanted to double check with you. Do you guys get paid weekly? Most of the businesses I work with on construction, they get paid weekly. Is that how you guys are doing it? Yeah, we get paid weekly. If you get paid weekly, look at my color coding here, okay? If they're paid weekly, then you need to know what day of the week payroll deduction happens. Here's a tip. Underneath monthly, it says 12 bills, 445. Sometimes there's 4 weeks in a month. Sometimes there's 5 weeks in a month. That's how you're going to know your weekly 445. Okay. And I have a little note over here on my left-hand side. What day are we processing payroll? And what day are we paying payroll? I process payroll on Tuesdays, but direct deposit goes in on Fridays. I'm going to write that in the box. Okay, because it matters. It matters, especially on weekly, because it could rotate when that 5th week happens, depending on the day of the week. Okay, if they are bi-weekly, this is in yellow. If they're bi-weekly, that means I get paid every other Thursday. I get paid every other Thursday, yes? Regardless of what the date is. I have to fill in the box at the bottom. This is 223. Sometimes I get 2 paychecks in a month. Sometimes I get 3 paychecks in a month based on how many Thursdays are in the month, right? So again, you need to know what the date of their first payroll was. You can write down, did you get paid last Thursday or this Thursday? You can write that date down, and then you can go back in your calendar and count. But you better verify it with your decision maker and your payroll person, because if it is off, it will mess up the billing. This is where we have the most trouble, is billing issues with biweekly versus semi-monthly, being off on the wrong day. So please take the extra 2 seconds with your decision maker and tell them, I'm double checking this so that it's easier for you. Okay, and I'm gonna give you a very easy way to try to think of biweekly versus semi-monthly. If a franchise is already doing deductions, they have health insurance, they have Aflac, they have blah, 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 and they're like, no, dude, we're on bi-weekly, then fine, be bi-weekly deductions. But if they are a brand new franchise, they've never done deductions before, I strongly recommend you explain the difference between semi-monthly and bi-weekly. Here's how it works. Semi-monthly is always going to be twice a month. Always going to be on the 1st and the 15th. Yes? So if you're always getting paid on the 1st and the 15th, that bill is always going to be the 1st and the 15th. Bi-weekly, you might have the 1st, the 15th, and the 31st on those couple of months, okay? So think of it this way. Your employee takes $10 a month of deductions. If they're semi-monthly, each of those payroll deductions is going to be $5 and $5. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Because we're always going to have $5, the invoice is 10. But on a bi-weekly invoice, your deduction is going to be $4.80 or whatever it is, $4.75. $4.75, the bill's still $10 because twice in the year, they're going to get a 3rd paycheck. So it equals itself out over the course of the year. But if that person, that decision maker, is not familiar with deductions and they take out this much money and they only took out $9 and the bill is 10 and you told them it's not going to cost that decision maker any money, who's mad at you right now? That decision maker is real salty because you said it wasn't going to cost me anything. Well, eventually it's going to even out and like the 3rd paycheck again, they don't understand that. They see number and number, they don't match. So really double down on that, okay? So if they are bi-weekly pay, but they do not want to deduct on that 3rd paycheck, they want the invoice to match the deductions, I strongly recommend doing semi-monthly. In my opinion, it is better for the decision maker, the owner of the business, to have too much money in their account to pay the invoice than not enough. Because they can always refund it to their employees if they accidentally deduct on that third paycheck, but they're gonna be really upset if they have to take it out of their own pocket to cover the cost, which is what they're thinking is happening. Does everybody kind of understand semi-monthly, bi-weekly? Anybody in the crew here that's confused about bi-weekly, semi-monthly? It can be very confusing, I get that. So again, if they're already doing deductions, go with what they're already doing. If they're a brand new franchise, I strongly recommend doing semi-monthly. Okay, now this can always change. You can always change it if they're like, no, I'm not happy with it. I missed that third month again, whatever, we can always change it. But it is going to be easier if you just set them up with semi-monthly. The deductions match the invoice. That's the whole point. Okay, and then obviously monthly pay, monthly bill, right? If they get paid once a month, you do every once in a while have those.
Do they ever change their payroll based off of this?
So TJ just asked, do they ever change their payroll based off of their deductions? I've never had that happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that nobody would. Any other questions on this sheet? Okay, so then down here, you're gonna create your enrollment period. You can do this with your supervising agent and your AD. But your enrollment period is either 30 days or 45 days, okay? So if your enrollment date that you set for someone for this business is between the 1st and the 15th, your enrollment period is gonna be from the 1st to the 30th or 31st of that month, 30 days. If your enrollment period or your enrollment date is on the 15th through the 30th, you can set it for 45 days, the 15th of this month through the end of the following month, okay? Again, you can have your supervisor and your AD look at that as well, but that is where people get confused here. It's either 30 or 45 days. Unless you have a ridiculously large franchise, which is a special case. We'll talk about it as a special case. If your enrollment period is 7/15 through 8/31, what's your first deduction gonna be? Your first deduction date is gonna be September 9/1, yep, September 1st, 9/1. And what's my policy effective date gonna be? 10/1, think you back up, 10/1, so a month later. So my enrollment period, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I watched your lips, I watched your lips. 30 days, 45 days, the very next day, at the end of that enrollment period is your first deduction. Policy effective date is 1 month later. We take the first deduction before the bill is paid, okay?
That's where I get a little confused. So I know cancer, they have to wait 30 days before the policy becomes effective, but if we're enrolling them on like, let's say June 15th, and it's a 45-day enrollment, it doesn't pull out.
This is a great question. So the difference between an effective date and a waiting period. Okay, effective date is when your policy becomes effective because you paid your first invoice. A waiting period on critical illness and cancer plan is an additional 30 days waiting period after the effective date. So I'm going to use that example. My first deduction is September 1. I enrolled on July 15th. My first deduction is September 1. My effective date is 10/1. They can't get diagnosed with cancer until after 11/1. Okay, it's a 30-day waiting period after the effective date. So I just tell people effective is when you paid the first bill, okay, and you can't get diagnosed with cancer until 30 days after that. Okay, it's a little bit tricky. That's cancer and critical illness only.
Both cancers, though. Like
Both
cancer,
cancers.
cancer.
Yep, both cancers, critical illness. And guys, just so you know, when you do a cancer endurance, like let's say you've got cancer endurance already, and then we go and we upsell the cash cancer. That effective date starts over for that cash cancer. Their cancer endurance is fine. Cancer endurance is fine. But that cancer, that cash cancer, that's a new policy, new effective date, new waiting period.
Good to know.
So if they get diagnosed with cancer and before their waiting period's over for cash cancer, they still get everything for cancer endurance, they do not get the.
Exactly. They get everything for cancer endurance. They do not get cash cancer. And the way it's stated is it's prorated. So it depends on like when their diagnosis is, but I just tell them that they're not qualified for anything. And then if they get it, then yay. If they're not, then they're not pissed at me. Because I'm not in underwriting and I'm not in claims. I'm just telling you what the verbiage says. There's a 30-day waiting period after your effective date. So don't go to the doctor.
What happens if they're in the cancer endurance, they get diagnosed and they, and this gets messed up, it's within that window. Do they not qualify for any payments out for anything related to that diagnosis? Or is it just a matter of once that waiting period is done, things from that point will start paying?
Fantastic question. Do you want to answer, Julia, or are you asking another question?
No,
Okay, go ahead.
it's 10%. If you get diagnosed in the first 30 days, once the effective date comes, and you have that 30-day waiting period, if it's past the effective date period, within that 30-day time frame, before it'll pay out fully, it'll pay out 10%. So if you're talking about cancer endurance, you're talking about $350.
As opposed to 3,500.
Depends if you do 10,000.
Okay, so everybody online, if you can't hear, can you hear her? Can I get a thumbs up if you heard Julia and Becca?
Okay, so it's not like.
So I'm guessing no.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, perfect. So Becca asked, what happens if you get diagnosed with cancer during the waiting period? Does it just make sure, like, do you only get the benefits after that, or what happens? And Julia said, if it's in the window, like you have the policy, but it's between the effective date and the waiting period, you get 10% of whatever it was supposed to pay out. So first diagnosis benefit is supposed to be $3,500, you're gonna get $350.
So I thought it was return of premium plus 10%. Is that only?
I would have to look at the marketplace bulletin, to be honest with you. Return of premium and plus 10% is ALX.
Okay.
I know that for a fact, that's a benefit
Okay.
that's paid out, but again, it's a prorated thing if you get diagnosed in that waiting period, okay? Again, it could be case by case, like I've had a critical illness where they were like, it's within the effective period, they just refunded all premiums, said, we're not paying out, that is what it is. So again, I'm not in underwriting, I can only read what the marketplace bulletin says, I just tell people, I'm like, if it's within the effective and the waiting period, I can't guarantee you it's gonna pay out anything at all.
Okay, so then the other question is, why do we need to do the 45-day? Can't we just always do 30? Is that?
You can always do 30, but if you're doing it in, like, let's say it's the 15th of the month, you can still do 1st through the 30th. You can still do, like, if I'm gonna enroll,
In time for them to get them. 'cause if you
Time
don't
of the
get
month matters.
It
right?
just gives you an extra cushion so that you're not messing up the payroll ladies.
exactly,
Yeah, this
so,
is with enrollment, right?
yeah, it has to do with your enrollment period. So if I'm enrolling on June 26th, and I know I'm gonna get it done because I have 5 employees, I'm gonna crank them out, I'm gonna get my deduction spreadsheet, I'm gonna get it to them by the June 27th, and my payroll person's fine with processing that in the next 3 days, go ahead.
Okay, that
But if
makes more
you're gonna
sense.
be a lazy, like I can't get it out the door, I got it to her July 7th, we got the holiday, whatever, then you're gonna screw up the deduction. So you need
That
to
makes
open
total
that
sense.
enrollment period.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with the policies. It's only about you as an agent. Can I get my deduction started? Can that payroll person, like, if it's a big franchise, I'm not doing that. I'm
Well,
gonna give
yeah.
myself space.
Sometimes they don't have time because they're doing something else on
Exactly.
that day and then you.
So it does depend, like, have that conversation with your bookkeeper person. Like, I have one, he's like, no, I don't process payroll till the 23rd. They're a monthly invoice. They only get paid once a month. He's like, if you can get it to me by June 16th, then that's fine. I was like, sweet, so that I can double check everything. But most of the time, that's not the case. They want it the week before. Like, I have a payroll lady, she's like, I want it now for July. Like, that gives her 2 weeks, dude. Like, okay. So it depends on the conversation you're having with your bookkeeper.
Okay, totally makes sense.
Hey, Nicole, is that why you wanted to try and suggest a 45-day for the meat company?
Yeah.
It is,
They're still in the
they're buying. it. They're being bought out.
So then the next thing, after I know what my payroll frequency is gonna be, okay, that's on my payroll deduction billing information sheet. Okay, Joe, just 2 more things for you. This first one is our payroll deduction agreement. I'm gonna need a signature on this one. This form states that deductions that are made on behalf of Liberty National policies by your employees are taken from their salary and then they are paid promptly to Liberty National for the invoice. This is the 3rd paragraph, you guys. You are reiterating to them that this is a payroll deduction. It is very important that you're talking about this because if you are not reminding them that it's a payroll deduction, I don't know how many times in the last 6 months we've had people like, wait, what? You don't have access to their bank account? No, I don't have access to their bank account because we didn't get bank account information from everybody, right? We did payroll deduction. I came in and talked to them on their work time. We signed a payroll deduction form. So, okay, Joe, this is our payroll deduction agreement. You're saying that if anybody wants to take any of those policies and that they agree to do a payroll deduction, that you're gonna take it from their payroll and you're gonna use that money to pay the invoice. I'm not asking you to use your own money. I'm asking you to use the money that you would have paid your employees. You've deducted that from their payroll. Now you're gonna use that same money to pay the invoice, okay? And then let me draw our attention to this fourth paragraph. You as the employer assume no responsibility for payroll deductions for any employee that leaves or is terminated for any reason. Okay, so if you're okay with that, then you're gonna sign here where the employer exits. And then the last one, Joe, this is our application for group term life, okay? What this form states is that we can actually offer the group term life to your employees at the pre-tax and the group rate. Without this application, we run our life insurance just like every other life insurance, the post-tax deduction, okay? This application gets them the best rate and it gets it pre-tax, okay? This is to assign it to that IRS section 125 policy, okay? It also states that we are not going to discriminate against anybody. Everybody's gonna be offered that lowest discounted group rate. And if somebody's weird about it, because I know we've had some experience where somebody's like, wait, I'm not a policy holder. Why does it say authorized signature for the policy holder? You are the policy holder for the group. Yes, and this bottom part, the signing of this application by the policy holder, parentheses employer, that's going to remind you, we're talking about the employer, does not constitute an endorsement of the policy, okay? It's not saying everybody needs to get it. It's saying that you're going to offer it to your employees on a group rate and on a pre-tax rate. Okay, the final page in here you can do with your team, with your SA, with your AD, but again, you're going to repeat the dates from that billing information sheet, your effective date. Your effective date from our example, remember, was 10/1. So I'm going to repeat that 10/1/2023. And then my plan year is going to be the same date of the effective date, 10/1. And then I'm going to subtract 1/9/30. Okay. This packet right here, this plan adoption agreement sheet is not in my example because we do it when we come back together. Okay. You do not have to do this page with the DM, because you already have the information. The other pages you do need to complete with the DM. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. We're gonna do it one more time. This one without, like, if you have a question, jot it down so that,
Wait, so plan adoption agreement, this is without the.
yes, you do not need the DM with you for that one. So I'm gonna go backwards, okay? I'm gonna go back and do it all from the beginning. One more time, and then if you have a question, jot it down, we'll do it at the end, okay? So if you're just watching this, like, this is the part that you want to watch over and over and over till you're super comfortable with it, okay? So I'm gonna start with my closing statement. This is how it works with that slide, okay? So this is how it works. We're gonna meet with each of your employees for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna get them set up with that no cost benefit, that health savings discount card, and I'm gonna get them set up with the $3,000 accidental death benefit. It's gonna cover them, their spouse, and their kiddos. Then I'm gonna go through that needs analysis, see if there's any place where I can provide any kind of information. If there's anybody that wants more information, I'm gonna show you those plans and how we can help protect them. If anybody wants to take part in any of those benefits and pay for it 100% themselves, all we ask from you is that you do that through payroll deduction. That way you get the tax savings and they get the tax savings as well. I do have some time available on Tuesday morning, or would Thursday afternoon work better for you? He says, no, neither of those days is gonna work. What about Wednesday afternoon? You know what? Somebody did just reschedule with me. I can make that happen. Wednesday afternoon. Want me to be here at 1 o'clock? Perfect. And then are you gonna be here? You're gonna be here, right, Joe? Because I want to make sure you're here so that in case any of your employees have any questions, they can ask you too. Okay. And then Joe, are you the only one who's going to get those deductions, or does Sally in the bookkeeping also get those? Let me make sure I get both of you guys in your email so I know I have that. And then are we going to be here in your break room, or is there someplace else that you want me to be in an office somewhere so that we can answer those HIPAA sensitive questions? Perfect. So now, Joe, I do have just a little bit of information to get you guys in the system, okay, and get you set up with that section 125 to save you on those tax savings, okay? So the most important part of any successful benefit enrollment is 100% participation by all employees. This benefits you in 3 ways. 1, tax savings. Obviously, the more employees that participate in our pre-tax products, that's going to be a greater tax savings for you as the employer. That works by reducing the amount of taxable payroll that you have, which you pay FICA and FUTA on. Number 2, as discussed, I'm going to make sure that every employee gets set up with that health savings discount card and the accidental death policy. And I'm going to make sure that they understand that those are coming from you, that you've made those benefits available to them at no cost, okay? And 3, our goal is to keep you in compliance with that section 125 guidelines through IRS, okay? Your plan stays in compliance by making sure that all of your employees have an opportunity to participate in the benefits. Now, Joe, I'm gonna make sure that you have flyers. I can drop them off, I can email them to you, but how are you gonna make sure that your employees get those? Are you gonna put those in their payroll stubs? Are you gonna put that up by the time clock? Are you gonna send a mass email? How are we gonna make sure that they all get notified about this? That's when you're finding out how you're setting up your enrollment. If they're like, oh, I'll take care of it, probably not going very well. Okay. So make sure that you know what we're doing with that. Okay. So then the next thing, Joe, is in order to get you guys those no cost benefits, I actually need to know who works here. Okay. So I'm going to need an employee list with their first and last name and an approximate hire date. I don't need any personal information. Okay. Just a little bit of basic list. Okay. That's actually going to help us whenever we're here. It's going to speed up the process just a little bit because they're already going to be in my system. I have an example of what that would look like. Is that something I can get from you, or do I need to get that from Sally in bookkeeping? No, you can get it from me. I'm going to email it to you. Actually, you know what? It would be really great if you could just print it for me right now. I actually need you to sign it. That way they know I didn't just create those names, that you have the authorization to do that. Do you mind doing that for me right now? And then you shut your mouth and you wait. No, Sally's going to be the one that's going to do that. Perfect. You know what? I've got an example here. Let me just rip this page off and then we can go get her started on that while we finish up this little bit of paperwork. Okay. Can you go introduce me to Sally real quick? Make sure you walk out of there with it. Okay. So then also, Joe, whenever we get started on this Worksite Advantage, in order for us to do that, my Worksite department's actually going to give you a quick phone call. It shouldn't take more than 3 minutes, but it's in order to verify that I have all of your information correct. Okay, your billing address, your pay frequency. Are you the only one that can do that phone call, or can Sally up front answer the questions too? No, only me, Okay, perfect, no problem. Do you want them to call here at the business, or is there a direct line that I can add here to catch you? Oh yeah, you can call my cell phone. But don't call before 1 o'clock. Okay, no problem. I'm gonna make that note right here. You can see me put that note right here.
Where go on the beam line, or do you put it by the phone number?
I put it by the phone number. Call after 1 p.m. phone number.
That was actually.
Yes, perfect. Okay, and then Joe, I just want to double check. Like most construction companies that I work with, they actually are a weekly pay. So I wanted to make sure. Are you guys also weekly? Actually, no, we get paid bi-weekly. We get paid every other Thursday. Okay, perfect. Now, do you want me to do deductions? Because if you don't, I have a little bit of thing I want to explain to you. Okay, so go back and refer to that. But you want to make sure that you've written down, I process on Tuesdays, I pay on Fridays. It's a weekly bill. I'm going to make sure that I match that up. Okay, there is literally nothing wrong when you're beginning to have your paperwork highlighted like this. 0 things wrong with that. If you need to borrow highlighters and colors, I got some on my desk. Literally nothing wrong with that. I have it color coded so I know what I'm doing. If I'm pink, they said weekly, I'm doing this part and I'm doing this part. Literally nothing wrong with that. Okay, perfect, Jill. So I got you set up. Okay, perfect. Then 2 more things really quick with you. This first one, this is our payroll deduction agreement. Okay, and what this form states is that any deductions that your employees agree to, so they can have the policies through Liberty National, that you're going to take those from their payroll and you're going to use that money to pay the invoice from Liberty National. Let me draw your attention to the 4th paragraph. It says that you as the employer assume no responsibility for any payroll deductions from an employee that is terminated or leaves for any reason, okay? But the people that want to have these policies and you take it out of their payroll, you got to use that money to pay the invoice. And I usually crack some kind of joke. Like, you can't go buy yourself a new pair of shoes, Chucky darns. Okay, and then they're like, okay, ha. Or, you know, they're like, oh, I got to pay the bill. Weird. I'm like, I know. Okay. Okay, and then they sign, okay, and then the last one, Joe, this is our application for our group term life, okay? Now, this form is gonna allow us to run that life insurance through pre-tax, through the section 125. If I don't have this form, we can still offer them life insurance, but it's a post-tax deduction and it's not the lowest group rate. So if you want to offer the lowest group rate to your people, you're gonna sign this form. Let me draw your attention to the bottom. If they're being weird about it, like, what? I don't want to be the policy holder. I don't want to hold on. I don't have that responsibility. No. The policy holder means that you are in charge of the group. You are the employer. You are allowing this group of people to have access to that benefit. It is not saying that everybody has to take it. It is not saying that you think ours is the absolute most bestest, but you are allowing them to have the option. And if you're okay with allowing them to have the option of our lowest group rate and our benefits through pre-tax, you're gonna sign right here. Okay? Okay, so that is section 125 and how we do it with our packets. There's literally, again, no reason why you should not have it. You can have it highlighted. It's not weird at all. I reorganize the pages in my section 125. If you just come up here on the shelf and you get them in the standard order, it is not in the order that I just went through. There's 100% no reason why you can't switch them around. When you turn it into Amanda, she will switch it back the way that she wants it. Okay, it doesn't matter, but this is the easiest way that I've seen. I get my date first. I go through what I'm gonna give them. Then I get the things I need. I need an employee list. I need a verification call. I need to verify their payroll deductions. I need to sign that they're gonna do the payroll deductions and pay the bill. And then I need an application for group term life. Okay. Everybody that's on Zoom, what questions do you guys have on how that works? Anything that was like confusing? I didn't say it clearly. Anything like that? Red Kingdom, you are muted if you're gonna ask a question, just so you know.
They always are.
I know, it's fine. I appreciate that they're muted instead of, making paper sounds, but don't shout at me. I can't hear you. Gary, are you giving a thumbs up? I love it. Thank you. All right, cool. I see a thumbs up from Kevin. All right, we're good to go. You guys are ready to close some more cases. I know you guys close cases all the time, so you're fine. You don't need any help. But now you know how to do your paperwork by yourself.
Hi guys, it's TJ.
Hi, TJ. They said hi, TJ. All right, so I'm gonna stop this